Hello, my name is Tiruna Pereira and I will be presenting this presentation to the class. We are going to talk about communication between the orcas. Here are the topics that we will be covering as a summary. We will be learning some orca facts and we're going to talk about the classification of the orcas and how they work as a social group. We're going to look at how they make the noises they make, how they receive them, and their languages and dialects, which they do. Pretty unbelievable. And also about recent boat attacks, which kind of put them onto the spotlight. Okay, some orca facts. Orcas are mostly, I would say, better known as killer whales. They get their name because there are some orcas, not all the orcas, but most of them do attack other whale species, whales and dolphins. And when the sailors saw this, they named these creatures who attack other whales and dolphins whale killers. And in time, the name turned into killer whales. Orcas are marine mammals, which means they are mammals that live in the water. They belong to suborder of toothed whales known as Odontocetids. Orcas are closely related to dolphins. Um, all the dolphins and orcas, they all belong to this class that whales belong to, but cetacean order, which mostly consist of whales, encompasses the suborder of the animals where dolphins and orcas belong in. Um, Orcas are the most widespread cetaceans in the world. We can find them in all the ocean geographies around the world. Um, we are going to be talking about orca ecotypes later on. Um, we will look at it when we get to that slide. Okay, so here we can see a classification of the orcas. Before we move to that, um, there is also a picture of humans in comparison to different orca types of the world. Um, if I'm not mistaken, this orca type, the first one we see here, is a resident killer whale, and the smaller one is an offshore killer whale. And the one at the top is a transient killer whale, which is the biggest out of the three main ecotypes. Um, as to the classification, we have the we all know the main grouping of the classification up to Animalia. It's eukaryotes, Uniconta, Opisthoconta, and Animalia. Then obviously Metazoa and Eumetazoa, where the true uh, animals belong to. The phylum is Chordata, and they are vertebrates, and they belong to the clade tetrapods, which all the mammals belong to. Um, the subclass Theria is where the whales come in, and in that subclass, there's infraclass Eutheria, and then the order Cetaceous, and the suborder of dolphins and killer whales Odontoceti, and the genus Orcinus and species Orca. So when we move to the next slide, we can see a few more facts about orcas. They are highly social animals. Um, we're gonna ignore the phenotypes and ecotypes for the moment, uh, and moving on to the populations of orcas we can find around the world. There are three. We'll be talking about that in the next slide as well. But like I said, they are highly social animals. and they live in different populations, and each population have different pods. Pods are like different groups that belong to different ecotypes, and these pods have different individuals. Um, okay, so ecotypes. There are three different main ecotypes: resident killer whales, transient killer whales, and offshore killer whales. If you can remember the previous slide, resident killer whales are the ones with the rounded dorsal fins. They were the mid-sized killer whales, and the transient killer whales are the ones with straight dorsal fins, and offshore killer whales are the ones like smaller killer whales compared to the other two phenotypes. If you go back to that slide, um, you might be able to take a look at the different phenotypes. Okay, so the ecotypes differentiate because of the ecosystems they live in and their diets. Resident killer whales mainly eat a variety of fish, primarily consist of salmon, and their habitats differentiate from the oceans of California to Russia. They live in really large groups. Transient killer whales live in small groups in the coastal waters of Pacific Northwest, and their diets consist of seals, squids, octopus, sea lions, dolphins, and other whale types. Offshore killer whales they also live in very, very large groups. Um, they live from the oceans from California to eastern Aleutian Islands, and their diets also consist of a variety of fish, and they also eat sharks. It is important to notice that populations or ecotypes, they do not interbreed or interact in regular basis. However, these populations within themselves, they have different pods. These pods and individual whales, they do interact and interbreed. Here you have a comprehensive list of different killer whale types. Um, there are two different hemispheres in the world, southern and northern, and you can see how there are different killer whales in different hemispheres. And yeah, the main difference is the dorsal fin and the spots they have and the color of the skin. Moving on, how do orcas talk? They use a nasal sac located within their blowhole to make different sounds. These sounds consist of whistles, clicks, pops, and a variety of other sounds. We will talk about this in the upcoming slides. Here you can see a skull of an orca, and where the blowhole is, and where the nasal plug is, and where the nasal sac is. These are the um, organs, or like this is the system that they use to make noises or sounds to communicate between each other. And here you can see how they receive the incoming sounds through their lower jaw, and they respond to the incoming sounds again using the same mechanism we talked about before, using the nasal sacs below their blowhole. Like we talked about before, humans have different languages and dialects, and just like that, orcas also have different languages and dialects. Think about different human countries. Think about the counterpart as different orca ecotypes. Doesn't mean they can't communicate. When they cross paths in certain times, they seems to have communicates. They do have some communication, but it is not as common like the communication they do within their pods and within their groups and ecotypes. How the baby orcas learn these communication methods is theorized to be that baby orcas do hear their mother's communication while they're in their womb. And after they're born, the orca calf seems to be following the lead of the adult orcas, imitating their actions and their sounds and learning the language. Killer whale sounds seems to be having few different uh, general noise sounds that they make for different tasks they do. Uh, when they emerge to the surface of the water, they seems to be blowing water in a certain way that makes a noise, and this is a mix of inhaling and exhaling. Um, they seems to be mainly using the clicks and puffs we talked about before for their echolocation. It works as a sonar system when they're underwater. Whistles and calls seems to be more of a amongst the group or the pod to communicate um, between amongst them. Mm, moving on, this is what put the Orca communication to the spotlight early this year. Um, they have scientists and whale watchers noticed that orcas have been attacking boats, and this could be a trauma response because boats are disrupting the ecosystem, or it could be playful behavior. However, it is important to notice that this happened in a group setting. Like orcas started attacking one by one, and it kind of spread to other orcas, and it started happening all everywhere. Um, this can be presented as some evidence that orcas do communicate between them, like amongst each other, and they do learn from one another. Um, this is a completely different topic when we talk about orcas in captivity against the orcas in the wilderness. Um, Orcas in the captivity do not have the same dialects or languages when they communicate with one another, and it is important to note that these groups of orcas in captivity are artificially set groups. Um, so it could be a reason why this communication is different from how they communicate in the wilderness. Um, if you listen to these two videos, they show how orcas are imitating and responding to human sounds, which is interesting. Um, okay, here are some references, and that is the end of my slideshow, and thank you for listening.